Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast and welcome back to our YouTube followers. That's right, we've got video back on Drive Your Thoughts Coaching with me, your goal coach, Carrie Marshall. So, today, what I want to talk to you about is something that I actually got from one of my Instagram followers. I asked, what do you want to hear a podcast episode about? And actually, this came up twice. So, I was like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and hit this topic hard. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about something that I call an achievement hangover. Okay, so anybody that has a high achiever or you've really gone after something amazing, you know that there's something that happens after you get that achievement done. And so let's kind of walk through this process because I know that a lot of you understand it, but I want you to identify maybe where you're at or what you have gone through before. So let's say that you went after a really big goal and you've done it. Okay. So you have absolutely crushed the goal. You can absolutely say to yourself, yes, I have done it. And so this is what happens. That achievement is now accomplished. And most of the time we go out and celebrate, right? We let other people know. We want to party with other people. We want to celebrate ourselves, all of that hard work that went towards that achievement. And let me tell you, a lot of times people want to come to that party. Think about like the Super Bowl. How many times do you want to be at the club that everybody's at after the Super Bowl? Or, right, how many other times do you want to be somewhere where somebody has just accomplished something amazing? It's really fun to celebrate. And so, if you're the one that is doing the celebrating, let me tell you, that is amazing. My husband was actually just showing me a picture of, he sent me flowers the day that I published this book and that it hit the top 10. And I just saw that and I was like, yeah, that was so much fun to like really celebrate that achievement that I have wanted since I was a little kid. But let's talk about what happens kind of after the celebration. Like I said, maybe you're going out, maybe you're getting flowers, maybe you're posting it on social media and you're getting a lot of feedback like, congratulations, that's amazing, whatever that is for you. Well, let's talk about when the hangover kicks in. Okay. It's usually not that day, usually it's the next day or the next week where life moves on. Life is always going to move on. And so then we're like, we've accomplished the thing. We've made the money, we've lost the weight, we've published the book. And then what? Well, this big deal for our life is now nothing, it seems like, right? Yeah, I hit the top 10 and I published this awesome book. But guess what? Book sales go up and down. People forget about the book. I get a couple messages about the book, but it's not like it was before, right? And so I want you to just kind of think about what feelings you process as you're kind of in that hangover of like, we've done the celebrating and now what? You know, we've worked so hard towards something and it just sometimes feels like it's over. I remember talking to one of my clients who's an athlete, like top tier of his athletic endeavor. And he kind of mentioned, like, yeah, I got the thing. And now what? He's like, I guess I go and do it over again. And he's like, that just like I've always, like, since I was a little kid, wanted to accomplish this. And now I just feel really empty. And this happened like the day after he had done the thing. And he's like, I can't believe I feel so empty today. And so, sure, sometimes like maybe we, get the weight loss goal is a really good example. So of course you're going to be maintaining, you still have things to do. Maybe you got the ring or the trophy or whatever for that athletic endeavor that you're doing. But then it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go back and probably do it over again. But there's just this feeling like a hangover. Everything feels heavy. We kind of start to question things. And so I want to kind of talk to you today about a couple of things that we can do once we notice that that achievement hangover is now very much in our life. So I'm going to kind of identify a couple of things that I see happen when people have, number one, achieve something amazing, and then number two, kind of hit that hangover achievement. and what I see people kind of do just from an observation standpoint. So, the first thing that I see people do is they try to prolong the party. So, these are the people that still want to keep going out. They still want to talk about it. They still want to keep reminding people about it. They keep trying to muster up the feeling that they got that first night, let's say, after they had achieved it. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but from experience, I can just tell you that like it doesn't last. And you're chasing a feeling that's not going to like stay with you. And so, like I said, like let's think really about like the Super Bowl. We'll use that as an example because like everybody knows about the Super Bowl, right? So you do the thing and it's amazing. It's February, right? And you've done it. You've accomplished the biggest athletic accomplishment for football in the entire world. And then you go out and you party. Amazing. The next day, guess what? People still want to party with you. It's so fun. You just did the thing. Maybe you're going to go to Disneyland. People still want to party with you. But how long does that last? I'll tell you what, it doesn't last until the next year. Because if you're not part of the next Super Bowl, let's say that your team doesn't even make it to the playoffs and you're going out and you're like, hey, I'm a Super Bowl. Maybe a couple people, but most of the time we're like moved on. We're like, well, what's the next team? I see this a lot like that Napoleon Dynamite scene. Our family loves Napoleon Dynamite scene. And the Uncle Rico, who's talking about high school football and how he really thinks they could have made it. Like nobody wants to hang out with those people. Like if you are hanging on to an accomplishment and you are not pushing forward to the next thing, and it's been a year, 2 years, a decade, okay, we've really got to have a conversation about your next step, right? Because that really is an issue when we try to prolong the party. So just kind of remember that that's one thing that happens with hangovers is we just try and prolong the party. We just try and stay in that high state all the time. And we're doing it because we're trying to chase that feeling. Okay. Now, the second thing that I see is that it's almost the opposite, and it's that we get depressed. We've hit the high, we've celebrated, and then it's like almost like that drop off the roller coaster where we just hit a really, really low. And I see this a lot with my clients. We've worked so hard towards something. And then, like I said, the celebration is over and we're like, now what? Now, this happens for a couple of reasons. Number one is we're tired. We're tired from doing the thing. We're tired and we kind of question, like, what's next? The other thing that I see happen is that we kind of had an expectation that, like, hitting that goal was going to be better than it was. And so then when we do it, it's kind of like, I mean, it was fun, but it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. How many of you are there? And so then we're depressed because the expectation was pretty high, but then the actual emotional experience of it was pretty low or lower than we thought. And so then we're kind of like, well, what was it? What was the point? The other thing that I see happen is that we get depressed because of maybe what it took to get there. And I talk about this in my book, How to Dream Wild. But one of my clients kind of sacrificed almost like his whole personal life to get this business goal. And so when he had actually received that business goal that he had wanted, he was alone. His family had left. He was getting a divorce. His kids didn't want to talk to him. And so then he got really depressed and he was like, I didn't think that he's like, I didn't want to actually have this be the cost of getting what I wanted. And so that's another reason why that depression comes up and that hangover kind of it almost gets worse. And so that's one thing that we want to kind of watch is like, am I in the depressed state of the hangover? Now, the third thing that I want to talk to you about is that as high achievers, we will then go from our high, right? The high from the after party, from the celebration, and then we rush out to go after another goal. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem, except for that we're rushing out to once again it's almost like prolong the party where we're like rushing out for an emotional experience. And we're like, okay, I just hit this business goal. Now let's go and really rush out and like grab this weight loss goal, or let's rush over and get this next business goal. Now, the problem with that is that we're not processing emotion very well, and that we're going from validation point to validation point in our life. And so then what we're doing, and I see this once again with some of my high achievers where they're just wanting to get validation from the accomplishments that they have. And they're not actually getting any self awareness about, like, how does it feel just to be me? They're just like, let me make my resume and my accolades look amazing. And so we kind of want to be careful about rushing out to the next thing to as like a validation point. So here's the three things that I see happen. What about you? What do you see from that achievement hangover? Like, what happens in your life after you've achieved something really big? So whether you are prolong the party, maybe get a little depressed, maybe a rush person, like what I want to recommend for everyone, and this is what I recommend for my clients. So if you're one of my clients, you know this, but what I want to recommend is something called self-care. I know, totally wild, right? But here's what I want to offer is that after we've come from something that is so big that we've really wanted to achieve all of our lives, I think that it's really important that we give ourselves a pause from the rushing, from the, tons of action, and that we just focus on taking care of ourselves for a little bit. Now, this could be a weekend, it can be a week, it can be a month, but we really do need to kind of settle in a little bit and basically take stock into what we have just done and then say, like, well, what do I need? Maybe I do need to focus a little bit more on my relationship, or maybe I hit a business goal, but maybe it did come at the cost of my own, health or something like that. If we can just pause long enough to take care of ourselves for a little bit, it gives us time for a couple of things. Number one is we get a break. Most of the time when we've hit a huge goal, there's this intense focus in the last little bit. And so we really do need to kind of just come back to ourselves and give ourselves a break. The second thing is that we really need to take exceptional care of ourselves. Like I said, that push at the end, like think once again about like what football players, NFL players go up against right before the Super Bowl. And so we really want to make sure that we're taking exceptional care of ourselves and our relationships, our business, whatever it is. And then the last thing that I want to kind of mention is that during this time of self-care, this is really where we want to start to explore again. Maybe you have in your mind exactly what the next thing is for you, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time to be like, oh, okay, like what is that going to look like for me? Maybe I want to do some exploring into what's new and different. Maybe I do want to kind of see what's fun and interesting. I just want to kind of show that that's kind of the next thing. So my client that's the high achieving athlete, he knew that he was going to go back into the same sport, play probably with the same team, but he knew that his focus needed to shift because just going after the next thing, the next ring for him wasn't enough. And so he was like, self-care first. And then he kind of started to explore like what would be interesting and fun within the same sport, but that would be really interesting for me. And so that's kind of what he did is he shifted, still playing the same sport, still going after the same thing, but he added a different avenue to what it was for him. And so that's kind of what I want you to think of is as you go after goals, I want you to be really clear about what feels good to you and go back into the self-care before you kind of come over it. And it's the same thing with like a regular hangover, right? Like if your body is now like processing like all the partying you did the night before, you really do have to like take exceptional care of yourself. And so I just want to offer that if you are in an achievement hangover right now, I want you to just stop right now, stop this podcast, stop the YouTube, and just make a list of things that maybe you need to do to take care of yourself so that then we can get to the next phase of like really kind of getting interested in maybe what's next for you. Now, I'd love for you to come over to Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram and tell me, what have you done to really help yourself during those achievement hangovers? I would love for all of us to be able to share these types of things with each other. So come over to Drive Your Thoughts Coaching and we'll continue the conversation over there. All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.